Everyone wants to feel confident and 100% capable of learning novel things. And yet, we seldom allow new pathways of thinking, feeling, and being to lead our experiences. Live into 5D weekly episodes are akin to personal agency microdosing, perking insights that lead to breakthrough action. Today's episode of Live into 5D, NLP Coach, educator, intuitive energy healer, Vicchi Oleski, is joined by special guest Dr. Daciana, an anthroposophic and internal medicine doctor. They both discuss how awareness, a critical part of healing and used as an embodiment practice, amplifies the person's healing. After leaving a large HMO primary care practice in 2018, Dr. Daciana started her own private personalized care practice, where she integrates all modalities and practices in a slow, intimate setting. Dr. Daci is devoted to understanding the subtleties of health and healing, and how to help individuals heal from the inside out. Thank you for coming along with us, and thank you to our guests. Dr. Daci, welcome to Live into 5D. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure and honor to be here.
Recording this live in Sonoma County. It's been a big week weather-wise. We had a brilliant thunder lightning storm on Tuesday. It brought so much hail and rain. Oh my God, it was so fabulous. I bring that up because that kind of energy, that kind of weather kind of hits the refresh button for me. Very energetic after that. I actually got stuck out in Spring Lake during it. I don't know, where did you experience that?
I was driving home when the lightning was happening, and it was beautiful and breathtaking, and the colors, the intensity of clouds on one side, and there's still like sunny over Sebastopol area, and yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And we're between two eclipses also.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for bringing that up.
Yeah. So Mother Nature's holding us on from different polarities right now.
You're a medical doctor, anthroposophic doctor. There's so much to really convey about what you do, how you do it, but where would you like to begin?
That's always a good, interesting question, right? Where do we begin? And as you were speaking earlier and asking me this question, I thought about a day. It's probably about 6 or 7 years ago. I was working in clinic in a HMO clinic, and today this stood out for me because I had several people come in and say, "Oh, you know, I have a hard time exercising outside because I'm allergic to bee stings, and so I'm afraid of being stung by a bee." And somebody else said, "Oh, it's hard for me to go hiking because I get allergic to poison oak, and it's really bad, and I don't want to experience that if I can avoid it." And somebody else said, "Oh, I'm really afraid of getting skin cancer if I exercise outside." And it just struck me really with sadness of this fear of being outside and being in nature, which really I find as one of the most healing things that we each can do. And just really wondering, like, what has happened? Like, why are we so removed from nature now? And how can we be more in touch with nature? And of course, if somebody gets poison oak, it's a terrible experience, and I wouldn't want them to experience that, or bee stings or skin cancer and all of those. And so how can we come back to nature? How can we feel safe and embraced by Mother Nature and nourished? And to me, that's where a lot of our health comes from. It's being in our surroundings. For example, I was in a lecture recently about preventing cognitive decline as we age. And one of the lecturers was talking about all the spices that we can eat and all the herbs that we can take that helps maintain our cognitive sharpness, ability. And it struck me how it's all here. Like within nature, we are given the answer to everything, and we're surrounded by it. You know, the herbs, the spices, the plants. It's all around us. And how can we embrace it more in a way that's not necessarily like it shouldn't even be medicinal. It's just be part of our life, like flow of what we do that sustains us in life, so that we can do what we're here to do.
You know, what I'm hearing, Dr. Daci, is that the nature, the naivety, the native part of ourselves of just trusting that when something goes awry, that it will correct by paying attention to that trust. I'm not sure, but I'd love to share this brief little story about the bee stings. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I had, in your practice with me privately. This was back it was about 20 years ago. I had a severe leg pain that sort of centered in the back of my calf, up, right around that area. And I was going to see an acupuncturist who was really helping me in many ways back at trusting myself and my own healing ability when in between sessions with them, I and a couple friends were walking on the sidewalk and we were laughing hysterically at a joke that we were talking about. And my foot went in a hole in a sidewalk that bees were living in and stung my ankle foot. And this pain went through and out the top of my head. I never suffered leg pain again. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I started to laugh, cry. My friends were looking at me like, what is going on? When I later saw my acupuncturist like the next week, I went in, I'm like, no leg pain. He had told me that if that was the medicine, I was laughing and in my joy body, and that if he had attempted to do that consciously, I would not have been able to be willing to do that, to take like 250 stings. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. A miracle for me. I could feel it leave. What's your thought on something like that when you are someone who people come to with the sense of maybe distrust in their own abilities? Like, where do you start with people?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. Yeah, and what your acupuncturist said, it's the trick part was you being in a relaxed, like parasympathetic, happy place when you got stung and able to receive the medicine from in that place. And it reminds me also, I had a teacher who was told me about like skin cancer and sun exposure, and how when we go outside and we're stressed and we have sunglasses on and a hat on and we drink coffee and our body thinks it's night and we're trying to like be awake and we're in the sympathetic mode, and you get it and your skin gets exposed to the sunlight and it thinks it's night and we're all retracted, then we're much more prone to getting skin cancer than when somebody is like sunbathing and receiving the sun in with joy and they're in a relaxed mode. Not to say that we should, it's not necessarily to say that everyone should go sunbathe, but if you are outside in the sun, it is important that we're in this, the more we can be in this relaxed state, the more our bodies really receive the sunlight and nature in a beautiful way. So where do we begin? I think just really, in some ways, going back to our roots. I mean, it's already in our bodies. Our ancestors lived in nature. We, most of us come from farmers and those who worked the land and were constant connection with plants and soil and all the creatures. So I think part of it is going back there. And I see this movement in our world, which is so beautiful now, where everybody has like little garden boxes or a garden, and just remembering, because we already know this, but remembering how to be more connected, whether it's even just having house plants or having a garden box outside growing a tomato. All of these, like, they really, I think that's one place where we can begin.
That's so beautiful, because it's very simple, it's doable. It would seem for most of us, whether we're in a city high-rise apartment or, West County, Sonoma County, wherever, that's what I'm hearing, is like you can just touch in some type of way, and even through our imagination.
Mm-hmm.
Where, give us a little background on yourself. I'm curious to know. I know current now moments with you, with your practice and your current, like recent history. But as a child, was it something with what you're doing now? Did you have an impulse as a child to do what you're doing?
Yeah, so I grew up in Romania, and I used to go visit my grandparents that lived in villages, and still very much traditional villages, and everybody knew plants, like especially all the women. They all knew what plant was for what ailment, and they passed it down to the children. So we grew up knowing, oh, you know, the basic ones like mint and chamomile, which are mostly worldwide, what they were for, and like St. John's wort was um, pretty prevalent. And so yeah, I grew up knowing plants that way, and having in my culture just like eating seasonally, fermenting foods, they're all part of what we did, or fasting for a certain time of years. Like there are all these things that were built in our lifestyle that now we look towards as being healthy things that we should do, when before they were just really part of our lifestyle. But that definitely helped me through my training. It was always part of my awareness throughout my training, that the plant world, the natural world, the lifestyle were as much part of health as the antibiotics I was learning about and the procedures. Which also brings me back to the bee sting, because it's nowadays, if somebody is allergic to bee sting, we have treatment. So how wonderful is that? We live in this time when we can really have it all.
Right.
We have the technology, and we have the medicines, and we have the old knowledge too, and the connection with the old ways of healing, and we can just hold them both and bring them both together.
Lovely. You said it so beautifully, like we have it all, in that we're meant to have it all.
Mm-hmm.
Simplification of suggestion of a cup of chamomile tea or some type of simple remedy. I know sometimes get looked upon as that it's, if someone's dealing with a chronic problem, and I'm not really talking about being diagnosed with cancer, although that's sometimes part of it. The simplicity of suggestion of a plant maybe has gotten looked upon as it's too simplistic. But I think that that's, again, where we can begin to go back at trusting ourselves that we do have it all. It is in plain sight. We're talking about having it all, but also the simplicity and also the new technologies of science and bringing that forth. Could you talk to us about your place in the medical world and having access to those technologies, medical devices, and how they are merged with, the old ways?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, so my training is in allopathic conventional medicine, and I've worked in conventional medicine for 18 years. I've been in hospital, like as a hospitalist in ICUs, and I've worked in nursing homes. I did hospice and primary care, and now I do integrative medicine, which still holds all that knowledge and awareness, but I bring in more of the natural medicine, the herbs and the plants and the lifestyle. And then I also do this form of medicine called anthroposophic medicine, which it's a hard word to say. And you said it beautifully in the beginning, but anthroposophic medicine brings another layer to integrative medicine, where we really look at the human being as not just a physical, but also energetic and spiritual being. And we use homeopathy because it has more of that subtle energetic component to treatment. And like you even gave the example of cancer, for example. So cancer is a beautiful example because it is an area where we need it all. We encourage, like in what I do and the way I practice, we encourage that patients follow conventional medicine and get chemotherapy or whatever the recommended treatment is. And then at the same time, with what I do, we can support them with natural treatments, with herbs and supplements and plants and homeopathy, which do multiple things. It makes the chemo be more effective, and it also minimizes the side effects. So it can support one's journey. And of course, part of that is also really supporting the journey, the spiritual part of any illness that brings in. So that's where we do it all. We bring it all together. It's not the exclusion of one, but embracing all that we have available.
Cancer is such a huge part of a lot of people's life these days, and yet I hear the coming together of the allopathic, traditional, conventional with the spiritual component of. Would you say that anthroposophic is bringing the spiritual component to the physical? Is that how I'm hearing it?
Well, that's a part of it. Yes.
Okay.
And I don't think that that's unique to anthroposophy. I think more and more of us working in medicine and healing are becoming more aware of the spiritual component that of our lives that gets really amplified, right? Like when something bad happens or when we go through an illness, that gets really amplified. Like, why is this happening? And like what we go through these journeys in life, and most of the times it feels like really impossible, and it is difficult and impossible. But then when we look back on that difficult time, we realize how much we've grown and gained from that. So supporting the difficult, also realizing how much it really affects all layers of our lives when we go through illness, and supporting those different aspects are really important. And like I said, I think more and more of of us who are working in the health field are becoming aware of the importance of that.
In the interview that I had listened to just become a little bit more familiar with your professional work, can you talk a little bit about education and outreach and what that actually means?
Yeah, sure. I am part of this organization. It's called Foundation for Health Creation. I'm one of the founders, where we do a lot of this.
Oh.
Just what you're talking about, where we want to bring more awareness about just simple things that we can all do to improve our health, to improve the health of our community, the health of our planet. And at the same time, I'm seeing that happening so many places in the world right now, like this podcast, what you're doing, right? So that's one part that I do. Does that answer your question?
Well, yes, it does. I feel like I had a good grasp of education and outreach. I think for the viewers and listeners, some of, again, the simplicity of what I hear you talking about. Number one, the first thing that you brought up is where to start. Is what I heard was to be in our joy body. That's the access that I'm hoping that our podcast helps people with. When we get diagnosed or we have a health issue, health meaning, not only physical, but mental, emotional, we tend to constrict and pull back. And the opening, the aperture of opening, kind of starts getting tight and closed. And the distrust of our natural ability to come back online. What do you tell people? What would you like to say during the podcast? Like if someone, viewer, listener, was listening right now and was in that situation for themselves, what would you say to them? What type of outreach would you offer?
Yeah. It's a great question. And it's very present in my heart right now. It's very interesting. Like how when we have pain or suffering, how, I heard it described as it's like pain is part of us, just like our arm is part of us. And we wouldn't say, oh, well, I'm just going to like cut off my arm. I'm just going to turn away from my arm. No, the arm is part of us. How do we embrace that, the pain, the fear, the suffering, whatever? How do we hold it in and embrace it? And it's not easy. I think one thing that is important is to taper, like how much can we really take in, because we can't just open and feel all the pain. That's overwhelming. No, it's not. I don't even know that it's possible. So in our nervous system have this amazing ability to regulate, and we can ignore sometimes certain types of pain or suffering. We can ignore, right? We can become numb, which is such a beautiful ability that we have. But as we become more conscious, we learn how to turn towards pain in ways that are tolerable. And the more we can feel that and hold it in a tolerable way, I think it allows us to be present and be open. And then the beauty is that, happiness and joy is there too. And I noticed also, even with like what's happening in the world right now, with all the pain and suffering that's happening in the world, so many of us like hold the idea, oh, I can't be happy because there are people suffering. And yet that's exactly what those people who are suffering need. Sometimes they need us to be happy. We need to allow joy to happen, because then when we have joy, we're resourced, right? we can support those who are suffering so much more too. And so it's this conflict, the pain and joy and suffering, and it's how do we hold it all in harmony rather than, you know, turning away from what doesn't feel good and just trying to turn to what feels good, or vice versa, turning away from everything because we don't want to feel the pain or the suffering. Rather, it's turning towards it and holding it and expanding our capacity to hold it. And I think we can really only do that together with others. And I don't really see how this is possible to do alone. We need each other to, you know, like when I'm suffering, I need you to be there with me, right? And vice versa. We need to hold each other in the pain and the joy. Like when you were with your friend and stepped on the bees, it was all there. It was the joy and then the pain, and you had the companionship that person to share it all with you, and that's healing.
What I heard, Dr. Daci, is that how turns into learning. Like, how do we turns into learning how to hold it? Like, where do we begin is learning how to hold it, hold and not walk away and feel into not how much we can tolerate, but like, where is that place that we're present and not running away, right?
And that's self-respect, and that's really self-compassion of being present with ourselves, not turning away from ourselves, and yet being present with ourselves to the amount that is that we can still be present. Because when it's too much, we turn away because it's too much.
Because it's too much.
Yeah.
From your perspective, what do you offer people as far as, you know, go do this for 5, 12 minutes a day, you know, to just kind of get that into the muscle?
I think it's important to do what you love. So like you being a yogini, doing, like, you have it right there. And most people have something that they love to do, that they already do. And it's building upon that. So the yoga is, how do we do it mindfully, slowly? It's not something to be achieved or to be, you know, to catch up with everybody else in the class. That's the beauty of now we're all doing yoga at home in front of a screen, right? There's nobody to compete with. So we can really be with ourselves, and we don't have to achieve that pose, but rather it's about slowing down, the mindfulness, like really feeling the subtlety of the poses. To me, that's an embodiment practice right there.
Right.
When we're outside and walking, I think it's important. We walk with friends, which is lovely, and you know, but can we walk with friends in silence? Can we allow time for that? Like, we, you know, there's a time to share, but there's also a time to be quiet and just observe nature and observe what's around us and feel. It really helps. Again, it's like it can be in a very embodiment practice, being aware of our bodies in nature, and then learning from the creatures around us. I think of, like, my practice is to walk on the same trail every day, and then I get to see the seasons, like the different things. I get to see how each tree looks in different seasons, and there's so many creatures that always have something to teach us. One of my favorite moments was watching a crane walk in the field, and it was doing walking meditation. Like, I was like, oh, that's how you do it. You know, like very slow, mindful, present. You could tell everything, like it was aware of everything around and focused on one thing at the same time, you know. So there it is, like our teachers are right here all around us.
Give us your take on these eclipses that we're in the middle of.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not an astrologer by any means. I've just been noticing that it's a little bit of an intense time, and I guess well, from what I read, it's about it's a shift. It's about letting go of old, which has been kind of the theme in the last few years, right? Letting go of old things and planting seeds for new things that are about to come. Yeah, I think better consultant astrologer though.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
My
Dr.
pleasure.